The salary arrives without ceremony, usually early in the morning, often while you're in transit or already distracted by the day ahead, and for a brief moment, sometimes only a few seconds, there's a sense of relief that feels almost physical, like loosening a tight knot you didn't realize you'd been carrying. You tell yourself that this month will be different. Not dramatically different, just calmer. You don't imagine abundance. You imagine breathing room. Enough to move through the month without constantly checking numbers, without doing mental arithmetic in queues, without quietly delaying decisions because you're unsure whether you can afford the consequences. At that moment, your balance looks reassuring, comfortable even, and then the days start passing. Nothing goes wrong immediately. In fact, life looks normal. You pay what needs to be paid. You buy what you always buy. You live roughly the same way you did last month. And yet, somewhere between routine transactions and background obligations, something subtle happens. The number starts shrinking faster than your sense of time. You don't feel irresponsible. You don't feel careless. You feel confused. Because you're earning, you're working, you're doing what you were told was enough. So why does it already feel like the ground is moving beneath your feet? One evening, usually not planned, you open your bank app with intention instead of habit, scrolling past the top number and into the list of transactions. And for the first time in a long while, you slow down enough to notice what's actually happening. Small amounts, repeated often. Payments you agreed to once and then stopped thinking about. Charges that felt insignificant in isolation. Costs that exist simply because modern life assumes your consent. None of them feel outrageous. That's the problem. They don't announce themselves as danger. They blend in. They accumulate quietly, and as you scroll, you start to realize that your salary didn't disappear suddenly. It dissolved. But the deeper realization comes later, after the initial frustration fades and something more uncomfortable takes its place. Your income arrives in one clean moment. Your expenses do not. They are fragmented, persistent, and relentless, spread across days and weeks in a way that never allows you to feel finished paying. Housing demands its share immediately. Utilities follow on their own schedule. Food repeats itself daily. Transport, communication, basic comfort, all recurring, all non-negotiable. And savings? Savings are what you tell yourself you'll handle once everything else is done. But everything else is never done, so the money moves outward automatically while you remain reactive, constantly adjusting, constantly catching up, constantly hoping that next month will finally be the month where there's enough left at the end to make a meaningful decision. There's also something else at play, something rarely acknowledged out loud: the pressure to appear stable, to look like you're managing, to avoid explaining yourself, to participate without hesitation. So you don't ask too many questions, you don't slow things down, you don't admit that certain choices feel heavier than they should. Because across cultures, across countries, financial struggle is often treated as a personal flaw rather than a structural reality, and carrying that silence costs more than most people realize. The turning point isn't dramatic. There's no sudden increase in income, no secret system, no overnight transformation. It's simply the moment you stop asking why your salary disappears and start recognizing that it was never meant to stay unless you gave it instructions. Because money, left unattended, obeys whatever pulls on it first. And for most people, those forces are already lined up before the salary even arrives. The change begins when you decide, quietly, deliberately, that something must be paid before everything else. Not someday, not when things improve. Now, even if the amount is small, even if it feels almost symbolic. Because the order matters more than the size. The numbers don't suddenly become impressive, but the experience changes. You stop feeling ambushed by your own finances. You stop treating each month like a test you're afraid to check the results of. Instead, there's a growing sense that your money is no longer passing through your life unchecked. It's doing what it was told to do. And that, more than any raise, is what restores a sense of control. Your salary doesn't disappear because you're failing. It disappears because you were never taught to decide where it should go first.